The Rams and Bucs have Super Bowl blues, but who is now the prohibited Super Bowl favorite? We'll talk about that and the odds, plus Thursday night and my mighty Falcons, all coming up on the Huddle, presented by OddsChecker. I'm Pat Mayo, joined by Ross Tucker, Pam Maldonado, and Brian Matthews to talk all things Week 5, and we're starting with the past two Super Bowl champions, the LA Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both losers in Week 4, in primetime matchups, spectacle situations. We all got to see their defense not play the greatest. The Rams played okay. The Bucs defense, which many of us thought was one of the best in the league, did not look so hot against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Pam, I want to start with you on this one. Which of these two teams are you more concerned about moving forward?
Are we not all terrified for Matthew Stafford over here? He looked like Detroit Matthew Stafford. 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's actually leading the league right now with interceptions. He had 17 interceptions last year. I know that he had that elbow thing. He hasn't been on the injury report, so I don't know if it's his elbow still bothering him, but he is not looking good. 31st in protection rate. This offensive line is like dismantled at the moment. I worry for Stafford, and I'm not sure he's going to make it the rest of the season.
Definitely more worried about the Rams than I am about the Bucs. I still think the Bucs defense is very good. I think that was a one-night Mahomes the magician blip on the radar screen for Tampa defensively. But I'm with Pam. It's the Rams, and it's primarily because of the offensive line. You know, they've gotten so beat up, losing guys in free agency and Whitworth retiring. They're not nearly what they were a year ago in the run game. They're not protecting him. He was sacked 7 times on Monday night against the Niners. You know, the Bucs, I still think, are going to be in this thing until the end. Highly likely they're in the NFC Championship game in my mind. Whereas the Rams, there's a decent chance they don't even make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with them. I mean, you look at the remaining schedule, too. Tampa Bay, we saw some plays from Mahomes where you just sit back, scratch your head, and how many guys can make that play? But Stafford's getting put on his back an awful lot. They're trying to figure out what they're doing with Akers and Henderson. And, you know, like Ross said, they don't have a run game right now. They're trying to figure it out. The offensive line is bad, and Allen Robinson looks lost. So definitely the Rams concern me as far as long term.
Ross, I want to get some of your insight into this on this like a Brady situation that's going on off the field right now. I don't need you to comment on divorce proceedings or what might be going on, but when this is the leader of the team, this is the quarterback, and now there's all this attention going on, does this trickle into the locker room ever?
I don't think it trickles into the locker room, but I definitely think it can affect Tom Brady. You know, I remember a couple years ago, Roquan Smith missed a game for personal reasons. You know, we all have real lives, right? Like, I know everybody's like, oh, he's a pro football player. No. Everybody has real lives, and Tom has a real wife and kids. And I can tell you there were times in my life that I felt like my preparation during the week was affected by things going on in my life personally. So I don't think it trickles into the locker room, but absolutely off the field stuff can affect the preparation during the week for a player. I don't think it really makes a difference in how hard they play or how they perform on Sunday, other than they might not be able to put in the same level of preparation during the week. They might not be able to have the same routine, which obviously is not good.
Let's move to a happier situation on the field, at least after Week 3 letdowns. The Bills and Chiefs both rebound in Week 4. It took the Bills an extra 2 quarters to get there with their big comeback win against the Ravens, and now they walk into Week 5 big favorites. And to win the AFC, the Bills are back to 2-1. The Chiefs are 3.5-1. Then there is a huge drop off down the list: 10-1 for the Ravens, 12-1 for the Chargers. The Dolphins are still 12-1, and Lord knows when Tua is going to end up coming back on the field. We're going to get Teddy Bridgewater this week, but who is the better team today, Brian? Is it the Bills or is it the Chiefs?
You know, I'm still going to take the Bills here. I like their defense. They got Poyer back. I know they're still missing some pieces, but you got to see, I mean, when that offense is clicking on all cylinders, they're tough to stop. Josh Allen, you know, he just finds a way to win. Truthfully, long term, I really do like the Bills.
Yeah, I'm with Brian. It's still the Bills for me, and it's still the Bills because of their defense, I think, is better than the Chiefs' defense. It's so hard, right? Because we just watched what Mahomes did on Sunday night, and it was so good. And it's so easy to fall into that They're the best team. He's the best. It was just a week prior that they lost at the Colts. And the Colts stink, by the way. The Colts are not good. So the Chiefs losing to them, we can't forget about that. I still think that the odds for these teams to win the AFC or the Super Bowl are pretty much properly priced. I think the Bills are still the class of the AFC. It's close, which, by the way, is why these games are so important. Makes a big difference if those teams play against each other in the playoffs, whether that game's in Buffalo or at Arrowhead.
The Bills lost to the Jags last year, and yet they still were one of the better teams to end out the season. So I'm not taking one-game losses to the Colts with a lot of grain of salt here. I'm going to be the cheese that stands alone and be the only one that backs the Chiefs, because Josh Allen against Miami, what I saw from him in that game reminded me so much of the 2020 NFC Championship against the Chiefs. He was rattled. Josh Allen, he was rattled. He was stressed. He was chaotic. And it was everything, all the ugly that we saw from him in the past that I thought he cleaned up. We saw it again. Well, I think this Chiefs defense is definitely underrated. It's an underrated unit this season. Definitely stronger than it has been in the past. And I will take Mahomes 100 days out of the week, 100 times over against Josh Allen. I'm going to be the only one that backs the Chiefs.
Yeah, you are, because I'm going to take the Bills in this situation as well. Coin toss spot, but I still like Buffalo. Let's go over to the NFC, though. There's one team who stands above them all, at the moment at least. The only remaining undefeated team still in football, the Philadelphia Eagles, are now up to 8-1 to win the Super Bowl. They get Arizona this week. They get the Cowboys next week before they go on to their bye. Pam, let's start with you on this one with the Eagles. How do I want to phrase this? We all kind of liked the Jags last week. Like, hey, they could be frisky, maybe not. Maybe they're a little bit better than we think. Are the Eagles actually this good, or is this going to run out of steam soon?
I think that Trevor Lawrence had 5 turnovers and still the Jags lost by 8 in the worst weather conditions that Lawrence has probably ever played in his career. So I'm still not as high on the Eagles as the world, but I think this is a good spot potentially for them to fall against the Cardinals just because it's a situational spot. We saw the Chiefs lose to the Colts, as y'all were talking about. They were maybe looking ahead to the Bucs. Well, who do the Eagles have next week? And that's not, it's the Cowboys. So potentially in just a look ahead spot, it could be a good situational spot for the Cardinals.
Yeah, let me just tell you, I watch every snap of the Eagles. They are this good. It's really, really impressive. I'm surprised, to be honest with you. I didn't think they would be this good. They were down 14-0. And you thought, oh, okay, maybe this is the time where they get knocked off. Maybe they're not as good as everybody's saying they are, 3-0, everything like that. They scored the next 29 points. It was 29-14. And yes, Trevor Lawrence did fumble a few times, but Jalen Hurts also threw a pick 6, and the Eagles still dominated the yardage across the board. I was thinking about this. You look at every position group for the Eagles and say, okay, where's the worst position group? I'm going to say it's maybe linebacker, with TJ Edwards and Kaiser White. Those guys are still top half of the league. I mean, their worst position group is still in the top half of the league. They have, in my opinion, the best roster in the NFL. They are this good. Now, that doesn't mean they'll necessarily win in the playoffs or, that Hurts can play to the level of a Josh Allen or Mahomes in the Super Bowl or something like that.
Right.
But I can tell you right now, they are this good. And unless the injuries along the offensive line to Mailata and Sayamalu really hurt them, I'd be stunned if they lost to the Cardinals. In fact, I actually like the Eagles laying the points. I don't think the Cardinals are very good, and this Eagles team right now is a machine.
Yeah, they're rolling. I mean, you look at the offense, it started okay. It's just A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Then you had Devontae Smith break out. Hassan Reddick is now showing why they brought him in. I mean, they have so many pieces on defense. And, you have a new guy making a play. And the weather was bad. They still got the ball to A.J. Brown. They had Miles Sanders had a great game. I mean, I look at them. You're right. I mean, all the question marks that people had mainly was, are they going to be able to play together? And I think what we're seeing now is they definitely are able to play together. And I think Jalen Hurts is showing that he's better than most people thought.
Let's look ahead to a couple of weeks when they actually get a good pass rush, just like we kind of saw from the Jags. A pick 6 didn't happen on chance. It is something that reoccurs often, actually, with Jalen Hurts. And then you get Micah Parsons from the Cowboys, and then you get Pittsburgh, who potentially should have T.J. Watt back. So those are the 2 games that I'm looking at, and those are the games that are going to have me decide, are the Eagles for real or not? I want to see you get past both of these defenses.
Well, I thought it was kind of interesting that the Eagles opened at DraftKings Sportsbook as 6-point favorites this week against the Cardinals. Go look at it right now. It's already down half a point. It's 5.5. It was 6.5 last week against Jacksonville. And I think we all kind of agreed that Jacksonville, based on how they had played so far this season, is a significantly better team than what Arizona is rolling out right now. Brian, you kind of hit on it last week. It's like you're taking the Eagles, but everything outside is telling you, the Jags, but you stick with the Eagles, they end up winning. And now they have a shorter spread against what's a worse team. So like Ross says he likes the points. I kind of like the points too. Do you?
I do as well. And I do agree. I mean, the line movement isn't great to see, after coming off, beating the Jaguars, who I think everybody thought was going to give them a good game, but I still like the points, even the line movement. I don't think Arizona's that good of a football team. So I do like them here.
What do you see, Pam?
I say that it's a look-ahead spot to the Cowboys, and that game matters more than the Cardinals. So a one-loss team, they can kind of forego it, and it's not going to matter much to their season schedule. So I'm not saying I'm going to back the Cardinals, but I think it's a good situational sandwich spot for the Eagles.
Well, the Eagles are the last remaining undefeated team in the league. However, they are not undefeated against the spread. There is only one team undefeated against the spread in 2022 through 4 weeks, and that is my Atlanta Falcons. Now, everyone's a believer in the Falcons. Oh, they play these tight games. They're 2-2. They're going to give the Bucs a run. Let's go back to our season preview show to see who really believed in the Atlanta Falcons. When you look at Atlanta's defense, like you have Hayward and Terrell on the outside, like very few teams are going to possess outside corners that effective. And with London, with Pitts, with Cordero, it does seem like they have enough playmakers to skate by. It feels like they're going to be one of those offenses that scores big touchdowns and goes 3 and out at a time.
Yeah, Pat, they're going to be bad, man. They're going to be a bad team.
No. Yes, thank you.
I will bet it with all of you right now. Not only does Atlanta cover games, they're winning games now. They should be 3-1 after that piss poor effort in week 1 after New Orleans to give that one up. But now we were looking at 4.5 wins before the season. They're trending towards going towards the over at least. They still have 2 games against Carolina. I feel like those are going to be the important ones, and the Saints aren't quite as good as we all thought they were going to be. At the upcoming schedule is no cakewalk. They get the Bucs this week, the Niners next week, and then Cincinnati the week after that. That's probably 3 losses, but can they cover the spread? That's what we're really intrigued about with those games, and they're down to 6-1, plus 590 to make the playoffs at this moment. Is anyone bold enough to take those odds?
Hard pass.
Not me. Hey, if you look, though, the remaining strength of schedule that they have is actually, it's graded as the easiest. Like you said, they have 2 games against Carolina, and look, they're playing teams tight, but I'm not touching that.
Not quite yet for me because of what the Cowboys are doing, what the Giants are doing, what the Vikings are doing. I can't go there yet with the Falcons. Look, I'm very impressed by them, and I like placing money on them to cover these spreads, but I'm not quite there yet with the playoffs.
Well, I was really excited. I'll admit, Pat, that I had some excitement for this Falcons team. I was thinking that maybe they could just be the NFL team that runs a triple option because their rushing game is really good. That's what's keeping them competitive. But now have running back Cordero Patterson out on IR. He's averaging 85 yards per game. He's a leading back, accounting for half of the yards and half of the rushing scores. Backup running back Tyler Algier is how I will pronounce it. Probably butchered that. He had 84 yards last week against the Browns, but 42 came off of 1 run. And now you probably have to put your trust into quarterback Marcus Mariota. 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I'm no longer excited about this offense because Patterson out is a huge deal for this team. And they beat Cleveland, who was without their best pass rusher in Myles Garrett. Now the real test comes when you have to face Tampa Bay and San Francisco and Cincinnati. So let's see what this team is really made of if they can cover spreads.
Ross,
hey, I don't know why everyone's so down on Mariota right now. I
know.
I think this guy's done a fantastic job. I don't, we're talking about him like it's only the run game that's carrying them, but he's making plays with his feet. He's getting it to his playmakers outside. I wish he'd get Pitts more involved. He's a great weapon, but they're playing good. They're playing good football for a team that literally was expected to be, one of the bottom 3, 4, 5 teams in the league.
He's playing well, but he had that support from Patterson. Well, now he doesn't have that support. So who's it going to go to next?
Well,
Caleb Huntley.
Ross, let me ask you. Yeah, you have Caleb Huntley, you have Tyler Algier, you have Avery Williams, plus you have Mariota who can run the ball as well. Yeah. Is this so much a product of Cordero Patterson, or is this Arthur Smith's rushing attack? You can kind of plug anyone in there.
Well, so Patterson is fantastic. I'm a big fan of his, but I do think Arthur Smith's done a great job with the ground game. I mean, the way they pounded the Browns in the second half of that game was embarrassing if you're a Browns fan like Brian. I mean, embarrassing to get run over like that. Caleb Huntley, I called a couple of his games midweek Maction games when he was at Ball State. He's like he was like the Jerome Bettis. He was like the Bettis of the MAC. So I love that they're pounding the rock with him. I think they'll still be able to run the football. Maybe not quite as dynamically without Patterson, but they'll still be able to sustain drives with it.
I think they're going to be okay in this spot. Because you have to use Patterson so much, and he was never really designed to carry the ball 15, 20 times a game. I remember this with Lamar Miller when he went to the Texans, where his efficiency was so off the charts with the Dolphins in this split situation. It's like, well, give this guy 20 carries a game and we'll see. And it turned out he gained exactly the same amount of yards on 20 carries as he used to do on 10. He just wasn't built for that role, and trying to keep Patterson healthy, maybe 10 carries a game, a few targets a game is where you want to be. And now you can mix in Algier, who can pound between the tackles. You have Huntley, who's small, but quick. He can hit the outside. So maybe it makes him a little bit more versatile, especially, Brian, if you can keep Mariota on the run too.
Yeah, that's where he excels. I mean, you see him getting outside of the pocket, and that's the thing. Look, if he's getting pressured, he'll get outside the pocket, hit his guys that are finding spots, but that adds a different element. I mean, watching him play, he's very composed back there. He almost reminds me of Ryan Tannehill, who came in and replaced him as far as that year he had with Tennessee, where there were no expectations for him. And he came out and he's having a great year, and he's already defied what most people have expected from the Falcons. So I think they'll keep it rolling. They're a solid team.
All right, let's move to Thursday night. We have the Colts, who may or may not be without Jonathan Taylor for this game. He has the ankle injury. He was watching from the sidelines on Tuesday. It's a very quick turnaround for him. And then you have the Broncos, who were kind of reeling. I liked the Broncos last week to cover that spread, and they just looked like a disaster. Javonte Williams out for the season right now, but this Colts team, after fluking out into a win against the Chiefs, looks like they're absolutely god-awful once again. Matt Ryan is actively trying to give the other team the ball on 50% of the dropbacks. And then their one good receiver goes MIA at halftime to never be seen again. And now he gets Patrick Surtain coming into this game. So I don't know how much that Michael Pittman is going to do here. Pam, let's start with you. Thursday night football. What are the chances the Colts can cover against the Broncos?
Eventually, the Colts are going to figure out. Yes, I'm saying that just because Frank Reich is such a great head coach. But I have seen this. You've seen it for the last 5 years straight. They are terrible in the beginning of the season. And we've already talked about it a couple times. Each and every week, we talk about the Colts. Midway through the season, they figure it out. The offense clicks. It's because they need to gel. Matt Ryan, I know he ain't it. Right now, he's definitely not it. 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 15 total sacks. He looks awful. Eventually, he's going to look better than he does now because he is a capable quarterback. We've seen what he can do in the past. It's just a matter of, can he figure it out now? Can the offensive line protect him? And with no Jonathan Taylor, that is a big deal. But how effective was he really? I mean, he had only 9 rushing attempts against the Jags, and then he was held to 2.1 yards per carry to the Tennessee. So maybe without him, you become less dependent of that run game and kind of utilize some of the other weapons and see what's what. I have hope.
Yeah, I mean, look, they can't possibly be this bad, I don't think, for the whole season. I tend to agree with Pam. I think they'll improve. Now, whether or not they improve enough for Thursday night is kind of a different story. I'd be shocked if Jonathan Taylor played. That doesn't make any sense to me with him able to get 10 days to rest it after this game. And I like the Colts getting the points. The Broncos aren't very good. Javonte Williams was a huge part of what they were doing, or at least they want him to be. So if you can get 3 in the hook from the Colts in what feels to me like a toss-up game, I'm taking the Colts and the points in this one. Wouldn't be surprised if they win it outright, but I love anytime I get 3 in the hook.
I agree.
I agree with them on this one. We look at Denver. We've talked about the coaching, and then they go and lose to the Raiders the way that they did. I think it's a group opinion here.
But you're talking about the Broncos, who are just as injured as well. The Broncos offensive line, they're beaten and battered up. You have the starting left guard, Dalton Reisner, starting right guard, Quinn Miners, and starting right tackle, Billy Turner. They're all banged up. And now we haven't seen Russell Wilson, how he can handle behind a susceptible offensive line. Well, we're going to see it. I like the Colts as well.
Right.
I don't like that the line is banged up a bit. I want Russell Wilson moving, and this might actually force him to get out of the pocket and start extending plays again. If there's one thing from that game to really look at is, yeah, Russell Wilson played poorly. The Broncos played poorly. They're not well coached, but his deep ball, Ross, still looks amazing when he throws it.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if it's because he's shorter or what, but there's something about the up and then down. I feel like Kyler Murray has a little bit of that to him as well. It's like the shorter quarterbacks, it feels like they get more arc on the ball when maybe it's just a visual thing when they throw the deep ball, because that one he had to Hamler against the Raiders was awesome. And they actually moved the ball, it felt like, better against the Raiders than they had been.
Let's try to win some money this week. Week 5 is a money-winning week for everyone who is watching the show, so it's time for Bet or No Bet, brought to you by My OC Premium. And don't forget to head over to OddsChecker.com and sign up for your very own My OC Premium account. For less than just $1 a day, you'll have access to our gambling experts, exclusive picks for NFL, MLB, college sports, NHL, UFC, NBA, golf, and so much more. After going 6-0 the previous 2 weeks, we hit a bit of a stumbling block. Thanks a lot, Cleveland Browns. Well, not for me, because of course I took Atlanta like I do every single week. But for everyone who's a non-believer and took Cleveland, you lost money on that one, unfortunately. Fortunately, you had enough money built up with the 6-0 the weeks 2 before that. You're probably still sitting pretty right now. But Ross, you stayed hot as the Ravens covered the 3.5. Where are you looking this week?
I'm looking to the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? I like the way they're playing right now. Their defense is playing lights out. Cooper Rush is taking care of the football and proving that he's a very solid, capable backup quarterback in the NFL. And they're playing a Rams team that's coming off a short week, and they're reeling. I mean, we just talked about the issues the Rams offensive line has been having. Now they got to go against the Cowboys D-line with Armstrong and, of course, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. Good luck to Matthew Stafford. He looks like he's going to get sacked a bunch in that game. I love the Cowboys getting the points on Sunday in LA.
I agree with Ross there. That was the first one I was going to mention, plus 4.5. I mean, I thought about teasing it, and I go, I don't even know if I want to tease that thing. So I like the Cowboys. Look, they're rushing the passer and at a great rate. Like you said, Lawrence, Parsons, they have other pieces too, but they're getting to the quarterback, and Stafford is on his back. He's turning the ball over a lot. This is a team that's trying to find continuity, so I do like the Cowboys here.
I also agree with the Cowboys, but I'm pivoting to another team. Seahawks +6. Is anybody else as impressed with Geno Smith as I am? He's been consistently good, and that's what I'm looking for is consistency. Top 10 in passing yards, leads the league in completion percentage with 77. And the Saints, they lead the league in turnovers. 10 fumbles, 5 interceptions from Winston. I know that he's injured right now, but the defense gave up 100+ rushing yards to Cordero Patterson and Christian McCaffrey. And so this is a game for Rashad Penny. 151 rushing yards last week against Detroit. The Seahawks keep rolling with Geno Smith behind center.
That was the one I was looking at too, Pam. And Ross, I want to get your take on this one. Like, do people still think the Saints are really good? Why is this 5.5? They're coming back from London.
Yeah, that number seems a little bit high to me as well. I think the Saints are better than their record. They were a double doink away against the Vikings on Sunday. What a crazy, wild game and kick in that one. But this seems like too many points. I'm a little bit surprised that they're this much of a favorite.
Brian, is there anything else if we do some teasers and pleasers here? You talked about potentially not teasing up some of these games. Is there a game that you would like to tease up? Because that Seahawks one feels ripe for the picking here.
Yeah, Seahawks is a good one. And then, if I'm looking at another side, I'm looking at Green Bay, New York Giants. Take them down to -2.5. And I just don't see the Giants with Daniel Jones, having to come back in, from an ankle injury to replace Tyrod Taylor who has a concussion. And if I'm not mistaken, Davis Webb is the third string quarterback. So, that's one where I think the Packers go out and handle business.
Oh, well, the Giants have just signed Jake from State Farm, so watch out for them.
That keeps me on that.
That's one of my teaser legs as well. Love it. Love teasing the Packers down. I'm also going to tease the Bucs down and pair those two against Pat's Falcons. I kind of like the Falcons with the points, but if I can tease the Bucs down and they just have to win by 2.5, I'd be surprised, very surprised if the Bucs lost that game to the Falcons. So that's my favorite teasers of the week is the Packers and the Bucs. You could also look at Jacksonville and Kansas City, getting those both down to tease to 1, because I think those lines might go up throughout the week.
I think another angle too, kind of not on the money line angle, but taking 2 games. If I look at the Bengals Ravens, I think the over for projected total points is at 48.5. Taking that down to 41.5, 40.5, and then taking the Cardinals game and potentially taking a max under on that one.
Pam, is there any leg that you see?
Oh no, I follow what Ross does. He's they call him Teaser Tucker for a reason. I'm gonna follow that. He's really good at the teasers, so I put my trust in him.
All right, well, that was another edition for week 5 of the Huddle presented by OddsChecker. I want to thank Pam, Brian, and Ross for being on the line. I want to thank you all for being here. Let's win some cash, all right? I'm Pat Mayo. We'll see you next week.